if you remember, like Bob Clark and Doug Campbell, they actually devoted a show. What was it called? The Lives of Fletcher
Yeah, the
Pratt?
Lights of Fletcher Party. What a
Right.
joke.
Yeah.
What an embarrassment. I mean, those.
Everything is going to hell down here in Texas.
Oh yeah, I had to let it run just a little bit longer today because I love it. Loving the intro music. Thank you, Shepherd of Fire. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. This is episode number 245 of the Lone Gunman Podcast. It's me, it's the Triple B, Bob Carter, otherwise known as Rob Clark, here with you today. What do I got to do? I have a fairly simple name. I mean, I don't know. I digress. Anyway, today on the show, we're going to get into some fairly interesting things concerning New Orleans, of all things, the International Trade Mart. We're going to be talking about the fracas on Canal St, and all that jazz. But before we do, a couple things. I just want to reiterate and mention again, your boy, that's me, the Triple B, and my buddy Joe Borelli, we're going to be presenting at Lancer this year. That's the November in Dallas conference. This year at the Lorenzo Hotel. We are going to be there virtually. Unfortunately, not in person. But you know who will be there in person? Doug Campbell. That's right. The host of the Dallas Action Podcast and co-host with me of the Quick Hits Podcast. So you can look for and hang out with Doug. But it's going to be a great lineup of speakers and presenters, and you're not going to want to miss it. So make sure you check it out. Head over to jfklancerpublications.com to secure your tickets. That's right. I'm going to drink an entire bottle of hot sauce before the presentation, so you're not going to want to miss it. Your boy will be breathing fire, baby. Breathing fire. Speaking of breathing fire, before we get started, let's also hear a word from our most delicious sponsor of the show, Silk City Hot Sauce, baby. Big Bad Bob here with you for Silk City Hot Sauces. Why Silk City? Because this hot sauce comes to you directly from Patterson, New Jersey, also known as Silk City. These hot sauces are 100% natural, gluten-free, vegan, contain no chemicals, fillers, dyes, or junk. Everything is packed into recyclable glass containers because glass doesn't leach weird flavors into the product. All other hot sauces are sourced in small batches from locally bought fresh peppers. It's all about the pepper, people. Telling you. Your boy, Big Bad Bob, loves his food like he loves his women. Hot and spicy, but not so hot you can't eat them. So, if you love yourself some sauce and you're tired of trying to transform your bland meat into something edible, with the tip of a jar, you will transform your life forever. Head over to silkcityhotsauce.com, place an order, and upon checkout, enter the code GUNMAN. That's GUNMAN for 20% off of your entire order. You won't regret it. Thank me later. Peace. That's right. So if you'd like to support this show, support your boy, go get yourself some damn delicious hot sauce, folks. It's high quality, low price, delicious. There is no downside here, folks. Place an order, silkcityhotsauce.com, and upon checkout, enter the code GUNMAN, GUNMAN, for 20% off your entire order. That's right. That is how you support the show. Buy hot sauce and listen. That's all you got to do. It's fairly simple. All right, so let's get into some things here. Now, the first guy I want to talk about, and this is a entirely separate incident from the Canal Street street fracas, that Oswald was arrested for on August 9th, 1963, along with Carlos Bernier and two other anti-Castro Cubans. There was also another leafleting incident that I believe happened after this one, and it's famously caught on film by WDSU cameras, and it's right in front of the International Trade Mart in New Orleans, which just so happens that is where Clay Shaw is the president of the International Trade Mart. Now, anybody who's ever looked into this entire assassination case knows the story about Clay Shaw. Clay Shaw is the only person to ever have charges brought against him in a court of law in the United States concerning the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. He was found not guilty by a jury of his peers, and a lot of people have different mixed feelings about the Garrison investigation. But we're not here today to talk about that. Let's get into a little bit about snitches. Because snitches get stitches. At least that's what they say around the yard. We have here a United States memorandum, FBI doc, right? Dated 11/23/63. That's the day after the assassination. To the special agent in charge in New Orleans from Special Agent Kevin Harrigan. Subject: information concerning assassination of President Kennedy. On 11/23 at 10:20 a.m., Mr. Jesse R. Core, the public relations director of the International Trade Mart, New Orleans, telephonically advised that WDSU had taken a film of Lee Harvey Oswald as he was distributing pamphlets in New Orleans last year. He also included in the film would be the individual who helped Oswald distribute pamphlets. In addition, Mr. Core advised that this film appeared on Channel 6 television the night before. So apparently on Channel 6, on the night of the assassination, they showed this footage of Oswald distributing pamphlets. Now, I don't know whether the FBI agent got this wrong or Jesse Core said it wrong, but it says a film of Lee Oswald as he was distributing pamphlets in New Orleans last year. Well, that would indicate that he was in New Orleans in 1962 distributing pamphlets, but that's not correct. It actually happened the same year, just a couple months before the assassination. So there's just that one minor detail that should be clarified there. So on November the 29th, 1963, Jesse Core III was interviewed by the FBI, the FeeBee's. They got to him. They got to him, folks. So, on November the 29th, 1963, Jesse R. Core III from St. Charles Avenue stated that he was presently director of the Jesse R. Core public relations firm located in room 211 of the International Trade Mart, 134 Camp Street, New Orleans, Louisiana, and added that he was also presently doing public relations political work for his client Robert F. Kennan, candidate for governor of state of Louisiana. He stated that sometime during the middle of the month in September of 63, when he was conferring with political associates at the Roosevelt Hotel in New Orleans, he heard a rumor that someone was picketing the International Trade Mart. And he telephoned radio station WDSU to inquire if the Trade Mart was being picketed. He stated that he was informed that it had been reported that pickets were located at this mart, and Core added that he was aware that this mart had previously been picketed by extremist groups, the names of which groups he had never been made aware of, but explained that to his knowledge they were small groups of males, but predominantly females, who picketed both City Hall and the International House in New Orleans, as these buildings had displayed the United Nations flag. Core stated that he immediately went over to this mart to see what was going on and noted at this location 2 persons who seemed to be handing out leaflets bearing the notation "Hands Off Cuba" and the name stamped L.H. Oswald, 4907 Magazine Street, New Orleans, Louisiana. He stated at this location he immediately conferred with a friend of his and Trade Mart associate named John Alice, owner of John Alice and Company, an import-export firm, International Trade Mart, 124 Camp Street, New Orleans, Louisiana. He stated that Alice showed him a handbill similar to the one described above, and Core added that he was so angered with the entire idea of someone passing out such handbills that he immediately wadded the handbill up and threw it in the face of one person passing out such handbills. Core stated in addition he cursed this individual and called him a communist. Core explained that the person at whom he threw the handbill moved his head slightly and did not speak to him, but gave him a cold and icy stare. Core advised that on this occasion he did not know the name of this individual, but explained that without any doubt, this individual was directing the activities on this occasion at the Trade Mart, and further explained that it was not until November 22nd, 1963, when Lee Harvey Oswald's picture appeared on television, that he was aware that the individual who was passing out these handbills on this occasion was identical with Lee Harvey Oswald. He advised that neither prior to this occasion nor subsequent to it had he seen this individual, with the obvious exception of seeing Oswald's picture on television in connection with the assassination of President Kennedy. He described Oswald as approximately under 30, 5 foot 8 inches tall, 150 pounds soaking wet, appearing frail, with his hair thinning in the front and appearing dark but not black. Shortly after the above described incident, Core stated he went to his office in the Trade Mart and while there received a telephone call from someone located at radio station WDSU who inquired of Core if a cameraman had arrived at the Trade Mart yet and if pictures were being taken of the activity at this location. He stated that he informed the person who called from this station that while he was observing the activity at this location, a photographer from the radio station was observed to be taking pictures. Core was furnished copies of approximately 6 photographs taken by radio station WDSU on this occasion and picked out an individual from among persons represented in these photographs as identical with the individual he saw at the Trade Mart during September. 1963, and added that this same individual was, in his opinion, identical with Oswald. Core continued to examine the photographs referred to and picked out a white male, described by Core below as being an associate of Oswald's on this occasion, but added that he did not know the name. White male, 6'1", 175 pounds, 20 to 21 years old, hair light brown, peculiarities. The guy had a suntan, okay? As if that's a peculiar thing in New Orleans at the end of the summer. I mean, come on, man. Core added that, as he recalled, only the two persons described were observed by him to be passing out handbills on this occasion. From among the persons pictured in the photographs, Core observed he identified the following named persons and added that these individuals were present on that occasion as spectators of the activity at the Trade Mart. J. Ihara, identified by Core as a Japanese who operates an import-export firm, Masuga and Company Limited, on the third floor of the International Trade Mart at 124 Camp Street, New Orleans, Louisiana. Telephone number 525-7841. Also a John Alice, owner of John Alice and Company, an import-export firm at the International Trade Mart. A Mrs. Isaac Dolores Neely, named by Core as his former secretary and presently associated with the New Orleans Press Group, New Orleans, Louisiana. Core stated that he possibly observed the activity at this mart for approximately 20 or 25 minutes at the time in question, and added that since he thought this information might be useful to the FBI, he telephoned the organization and reported the nature of the activity described above. So thank God that this man let the FBI know what was going on. Because how dare somebody picket anybody in this city in front of the International Trade Mart? How dare they? How dare they? Now, when Harold Weisberg was investigating, in New Orleans, helping investigate the Clay Shaw case, he actually became really good friends with Jesse Core. Met with him many times. Core gave him a lot of information. They drank together. He says here, and this even happened after the Clay Shaw case was over. He says, my source on most that does not come from documents and interviews with others was Jesse Core, who became a friend. The Monday before Thanksgiving last year in 1971, he took me to a great lunch at the Commander's Palace at the garden section of New Orleans. I rarely get drunk anymore, never when working, but I can keep drinking. I'm not boasting when I say I stayed with him round for round. I think Jesse wanted to relax, or may have had a head start. We were both glad to see each other, both getting to the restaurant early, although he was in the middle of a campaign and had several clients. He had been advertising and PR manager for Garrison's first campaign. There was a pleasant intrusion that ended confidential conversation. A friend of Jesse's, a real movie character named Charlie Gresham, came in with a woman who was alumni chairman for the coming bowl game. Charlie was a friend of Meyer Lansky's, although from a fine family, the apparent source of his apparent wealth. Charles lubricated to the point where he'd talk only personal things about Lansky. They had a business relationship. So then it goes on a little bit talking about other colorful folks in New Orleans. And then you get back to talking about the International Trade Mart. And he says, that was on the beat of Warren DeBreeze. He covered it as regularly as a reporter touches base with regulars on his beat. There was an additional reason. Shaw and the normal work of the International Trade Mart brought in a wide assortment of foreign dignitaries who were overloaded with enemies like Somoza. Thus, there were legitimate security concerns the FBI had. and Jesse met with DeBreeze on such things often, knew him personally, and regarded him as a friend. An aside, he was always baffled that DeBreeze had so little interest, took so long in coming, when he phoned to leave word that he had the leaflet Oswald had been using. I do have a memo of that and a Xerox of the original from Jesse, plus other details. Further aside, Jesse was in the original WDSU footage. He reviewed it with Ed Planer as soon as Oswald was mentioned, and it was still there, not an outtake. Ed Planer confirmed it by phone the day after I saw Jesse Tuesday morning before I met Guy. Now, I learned things about DeBreeze by just bumping into it. For one thing, a lawyer named Dell arranged to defend the spurious Bernier suits that had been a law school classmate. So DeBreeze was a local boy on long-time local assignment, a reasonable situation. Also, something that did not emerge in the hearings was that DeBreeze was fluent in Spanish. If to this and other things, for which I do not now have time, are added what is in coup, there is an explanation of why DeBreeze, of all the agents of the FBI that were available, was shipped to Dallas immediately to do the correlating, which we now know with certainty was really filtering. He was an ideal man to remain in New Orleans for that job, and any competent agent could have done his Dallas job if the intent was a straight job. DeBreeze had the special knowledge for filtering. I believe that had he remained in New Orleans, some of the really fine leads in those reports would not exist. Similar conditions do not exist in Dallas, where he did his job rather well, considering the bulk of what he handled. Clay Shaw gave free space in the old International Trade Mart to a CIA outfit, a Cuban one, the name of which the incompetence in Garrison's office never got into the trial record. It is in the grand jury transcripts taken from Josephine Hugg. I think there is indefinite reference to in her trial testimony, which I do not have in transcript. Now, William Gaudette, who immediately fingered Ruby to the New Orleans FBI, ran the Latin American reports as it could not afford to run from a 3-room suite in the International Trade Mart. Gaudette was CIA, as was his LAR. I don't know what that means. Shaw's explanation of why LHO picketed the International Trade Mart was the presence of the Cuban consulate there. There was no Cuban consulate there, so his explanation makes no sense. But good old JG, Jim Garrison, let it stand unchallenged. I believe LHO had been told where to picket. Bearing on this, he had numbers not listed in his book, including relating to this, like Vern Rotman's not at WDSU and not in Rotman's name. It was a haphazard thing. And DeBreeze covered that building. He was also yanked from New Orleans, and I don't know the date, but right after my grand jury appearance, which I think was 4/18/67, he was in Washington and did not return to New Orleans for the duration. For some reason, it was decided that he was more touchy than the other key agents whose names did not come to mind immediately. The one who, quote, investigated Shaw, who was allowed to remain in New Orleans and assert privilege. So, yeah. I love reading Harold Weisberg, his writings. He says, Jesse Core was a conservative, a close friend of Clay Shaw's. At the time Oswald picketed the International Trade Mart, its public relations man, and Shaw was still its manager. He was offended that Garrison was not in touch with him on the Shaw case because he had been important in Garrison's campaign, and Jim knew that he was a friend of Shaw's. I remember that because I had not drunk heavily in years, and I drank him under the table, so to speak, figuratively, not literally. He was not in good shape when we parted, and I kept working. So let's see. What else we got here on Jesse Core? So FBI Special Agent DeBreeze, Core phoned him as soon as Oswald started to picket the International Trade Mart building. I do not know if there was any special reason for it, taking DeBreeze so long to get there, or why he had so little interest with LHO and FBI case. And with DeBreeze, the no FBI Oswald case agent. But in light of this, several other items are of more interest. Core must have told him, as he told me, that there were two young men picketing the International Trade Mart with Oswald. The one acknowledged to have by the FBI and Commissioner Charles Hall Steele III confirmed that there was another with him, a man he did not know. Also, the New Orleans Harbor Police copy of the Oswald handbill it got when he picketed the carrier Wasp, which was docked a short distance from the International Trade Mart at the Dumaine Street Wharf, had fingerprints on it that were not Oswald's. The FBI did nothing with that and refused to give me that identification. Garrison also did nothing about it. Moving DeBreeze of all New Orleans agents to Dallas seems a bit strange because in Dallas he sat in the office as an assistant to Gemberling, the case agent. Like Gemberling, DeBreeze assembled the fat volumes of reports and forwarded them to FBI headquarters. So why any agent without DeBreeze's knowledge of Oswald in New Orleans was not sent to Dallas so DeBreeze could be of use in New Orleans is a mystery to me. It also seems strange that Oswald knew the correct person on the WDSU TV news staff to approach to have his picketing on TV. And he had a non-business number for him, Vern Rotman. It's in LHO's address book. There's much that is odd, except as suspicious in the FBI's New Orleans investigation, and it coincides in time with DeBreeze's being detailed to Dallas. A few of these matters. Oswald did not pick his print job up from the Jones Printing Company, and the FBI knew it, but fudged this in its reports. When the Secret Service was getting close in its investigation, the FBI had Secret Service headquarters call the Secret Service off, and they never learned what I did from Jones and his assistant, Myra Silver. I taped it. We can only guess why, but the FBI covered that up as a fact. The man both Jones and Silver identified as the person who picked up the leafleting pamphlets was none other than Kerry Thornley, identified by photograph, who had known Oswald while in the Marines. I've never used his name in public on this. It would be unfair, even to a nasty like Thornley. I do not know what DeBreeze is being detailed to FBI headquarters right after my grand jury testimony had any connection with my testimony. Times coincide. He was out of New Orleans for the duration of the Garrison fiasco. The Oswald file case was referred to Dallas from New Orleans a month before the assassination, or it was DeBreeze's case all the time LHO was in New Orleans. Whatever the reason or reasons may have been, it is conspicuous that DeBreeze was detailed to Dallas at the time of the assassination investigation for a job any FBI agent could have done, getting him out of New Orleans for the key part of the investigation there, and he was also out of New Orleans and out of Garrison's reach for the period of the Shaw case, and he had been the Oswald case agent. He should have known that Oswald was not alone in his picketing, too, which should have figured in any investigation. Other evidence relates to this, too, and didn't. Steele was in the TV footage, so the FBI spoke to him alone. The other man wasn't in the footage, so they forgot about him. He is in the FBI records on the Doyle movie film and perhaps in records on John Martin's film of Minneapolis. I have files on both. That Shaw perjured himself in the Garrison case does not mean he was guilty in it, folks. This is from December 14th, 1968. A re-interview with Jesse Core. Jesse Cord normally extended courtesies to the FBI made possible by his trademark position, especially in connection with the visits of foreign personages. To this agent, he gave a clean, unrumpled leaflet given to him by John Alice. He saved the wrinkled one he had earlier crumpled and thrown in Oswald's face and later retrieved from the gutter for himself. It is this one of which he gave me a copy. He is positive he did not give the leaflet to DeBreeze because he is confident DeBreeze was not the first agent to see him, that this came later. I gave him copies of the FBI reports. He also knows DeBreeze well. After the assassination on 11/22/63, when reminded of this incident by Bill Martin, later on Garrison staff, Core phoned the FBI to remind them of the 8/16/63 incident. They acted like they couldn't care less, he says. Okay. So that whole escapade happened a week after the infamous fracas on Canal Street with Carlos Brunier, after Oswald's arrest on August 9th. So a week later, he's back doing the same thing, this time in front of the International Trade Mart there on Camp Street. Now, it's interesting to keep in mind here that none of these pamphlets contemporaneously with the time Oswald was handing them out ever bore the address of 544 Camp Street. This was, so if you've ever seen a Oswald handbill with the stamped address 544 Camp Street, that is a Oliver Stone movie handbill. Okay? There is no handbill that existed back then in 1963 that was ever stamped with that address. It was purely an Oliver Stone concoction. So, obviously, these incidents of handing out handbills, we have Oswald doing it in front of the Trade Mart. We have him doing it on Canal Street. We have him doing it at the USS Wasp. We even have a report of him doing it outside the Havana bar, or Peña's bar. And this was a couple days before he got arrested. So, obviously, something was going on here. And the owners of the printing company that printed the leaflets were shown Oswald's picture. And they said, no, that's not the guy that picked him up. They were shown various other photos of different characters associated with New Orleans. And the one that they picked out was none other than Carrie Thornley, folks. Carrie Thornley. Which just so happens just from the last show. Okay? Before they hit the landfill. The Ken Thornley FBI document from November 22nd, 1963, where he was in a bar drinking and was overheard talking about his son, knowing Oswald and being a very close friend of Oswald's, having correspondence with Oswald, having real recent correspondence with Oswald. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. And Harold Weisberg interviewed these people, the owner and employees of the Jones Printing Company, and he got them on audio cassette, admitting that no, the person that picked these flyers up was Carrie Thornley, not Oswald. And the FBI didn't do anything with that information because, the FBI would have interviewed the people at the Jones Printing Company. And they even said that they were interviewed by the FBI, and they told them the exact same thing. Of course, the FBI didn't show him a picture of Kerry Thornley, so they couldn't identify him as Kerry Thornley, the person who did pick up the pamphlets, but they did tell the FBI that the person that picked up the pamphlets was not Lee Harvey Oswald. And I'm sure they gave him a description. So, but that's something that the FBI didn't do anything with or pursue. Imagine that. And just to tie all this in a neat little bow, we have a CIA document from September 11th, 1967, referring to the Oswald case, Clay Shaw, number 402-807-897-A. According to a Washington Star clipping dated March 2nd, 67, Clay Shaw, who was arrested, indicted, and is awaiting trial in connection with the charge that he conspired with Lee Harvey Oswald and David Ferrie to assassinate President Kennedy, was described by one Jesse Core as a political liberal who was very admiring of President Kennedy. According to Core, Shaw talked of voting for Kennedy in 1960 and even wore a Kennedy for President button on his lapel. Jesse Core worked with Shaw in 1963 at the International Trade Mart in New Orleans. Security indices reflected one Jesse R. Core, chief consul with USIS in the American Embassy in Madras, India, in 1950 was a friend of Redacted, former CIA covert agent who is separated from the agency in October of 52, following a serious security breach which involved a Mrs. Lillian Baxter of Calcutta, India, who also was known to Core. Mrs. Baxter, who was believed to be an American with Indian citizenship, had formerly been married to an Anglo-Indian planter in India and was said to have become a prostitute, and in 1951 to have been kept by a wealthy Marwari. She was believed to be controlled by Indian intelligence, and it was thought that she might be an agent for any of several governments, including England and Russia. She was an associate of Redacted and was suspected of stealing security documents from him. There is insufficient information regarding Jesse Core, Clay Shaw's associate, to positively identify him as Redacted's friend, Jesse R. Core, but it seems quite probable that they are one and the same person. Core is from New Orleans, but it would appear that Redacted is from New Orleans, and it would appear that his friend Core is also, inasmuch as he seems in all probability to be the husband of Mrs. Jesse Core, born Lucy Ruggles, who, as of 1956, was said to be married to a man in the State Department and be somewhere overseas, and in 1957 was said to reside in New Orleans, Louisiana. Mrs. Jesse Core was one of a suspect political group, Dallas County Volunteers for Rainey, which was of interest to the security office in 56 to 57 because of the fact that current CIA employee Michael Charles Pearson and his friend John Max Rosenfield, a former OSS man, had been members. The organization, which numbered about 25 persons, most of whom were said to have been former students at the University of Texas, from which Homer T. Rainey, a former liberal president, had been discharged, was of a liberal radical persuasion. One member of the group, in which Mrs. Jesse Core, then Lucy Ruggles, the daughter of William Ruggles, who was an editorial writer on the Dallas Morning News, was particularly active. It's said to have been subsequently been arrested by the FBI for communist activities, and several others have been active in communist organizations. So, what the FBI didn't tell us about Jesse Core and his wife, but something that the CIA knew, is that they had been arrested for and suspected of being communists and having some kind of foreign intelligence ties in India. Weird and wild, folks. You can't make this shit up. I'm telling you. And next up, we have a very interesting story about the street fracas on Canal Street with Carlos Bernier and Oswald. And of course, this scene or incident was partially filmed by Jim Doyle, and it's called the Doyle film, and also a fellow by the name of John T. Martin of Minneapolis. Both of them captured snippets of what was going on in the street. Not the whole thing, of course. And let's just say at the time, John T. Martin was alone in filming. But Jim Doyle, and they were both teenagers and they were both on vacation. The Doyles from Oregon and Martin from Minneapolis. But at the time that he was taking this movie on Canal Street, Jim Doyle was actually with his parents and a friend of the family. There was also another family on vacation with them. And at this time they were split up a little bit. Like where both dads and the sons were together and both the moms and the girls were together. Now they were on the same street and the ladies were a little bit in front of them. I'm not sure if they were just walking around sightseeing or shopping or what they were doing. But that's kind of how the scene went. And when it comes to the Garrison investigation, they were interested in looking at these home movies and trying to identify people in the film that were allegedly handling Oswald or various other characters who may have been there, like Lawrence Howard or Dean Andrews. Dean Andrews claimed to have seen this happen. So Tom Bethel had reached out to the Doyles, who, of course, lawyered up just to preserve their own self-interest and deal with stuff like this. And so they were dealing with somebody by the name of Stanley R. Primer, who lived in Berkeley, California. And he reached out to Tom Bethel, who was working as an investigator on the Garrison team in 1968. And it says this, Dear Mr. Bethel, when I phoned you on or about 25 November 67 concerning the Oswald literature scuffle, you said you would like to obtain the movies taken by J. Pat Doyle's son Jim. Paul Hawk told me you mentioned it again to him, so I wrote Mr. Doyle and then phoned him on January 21st and 27th, 68. Mr. Doyle was very cooperative and promised to send the film to the address you gave him. I encouraged him to send you the original and retain a copy for himself, but he may send the copy. Mr. Doyle stated that he gave the film to the FBI immediately after the assassination, and about 2 months later it was returned to him, and his family viewed the film and noticed that some of it was missing. Some of the pictures were taken were close-ups of the arresting officer, which were clear enough to observe his badge number. These and certain other views are no longer part of the film. Now, this is a very serious allegation, but it does not stand alone, folks. John T. Martin of Minneapolis also claimed to Harold Weisberg and researcher Gary Schoner at the time, when they were in Minneapolis giving a talk at the University of Minneapolis, and they met John T. Martin, and he personally showed them his movie and made copies for them and for Garrison. He alleged the exact same thing, that it appears that after his film had been returned to him from the FBI, that it had been edited. but he wasn't sure exactly what had been taken out. He just knew something wasn't right. Now, Weisberg was, it's about the same time, 1968, May, June. They were trying to run down John T. Martin again and get him to sign an affidavit that he believed the FBI had edited his film. That, along with the assertion of the Doyle family that believed that the FBI had edited the film, would have been very powerful for Jim Garrison and his case against Clay Shaw, because that would imply that the government had tampered with evidence and they could prove it. All right, continuing with the letter. I included a copy of the FBI report concerning him with my letter to Mr. Doyle. He stated that it was correct as far as he could remember. He verified that another man was passing out literature with Oswald, as is stated in the FBI report. Oswald and this other man were walking down the street together, and then well-dressed Cubans began approaching them in small groups. A total of 8 to 14 Cubans were soon berating them noisily. Now, folks, officially, Oswald is the only person arrested that was handing out leaflets. And officially, 3 Cubans, including Carlos Bernier and his 2 buddies, were the only Cubans arrested in this fracas. So what the hell happened here? Oswald's companion disappeared immediately, as in took off, jetted, beat feet, if you will. And Doyle thinks he is not shown on the film. I asked Mr. Doyle to look at the film again and try to identify Oswald's companion if possible. The film does show the sign laying on the sidewalk that Oswald's companion had been carrying around his neck. According to the FBI report on Doyle, the pieces of this broken sign were carried away by police. Doyle remembered the sign carried by Bernier, and that it referred to Cuba being in chains only 90 miles from the United States. He stated that the police appeared immediately after the ruckus commenced and that he observed no physical contact between the antagonists. 2 or 3, other people took pictures of this incident, including one tall man who took still photographs. Now, we have never seen those, folks. Never seen them. He says, as far as Mr. Doyle knows, his film has never been shown on TV. And he says, a friend of Mr. Doyle's, Matt O. Wilson, was also present at the incident, and Mr. Doyle thought that Wilson had not been interviewed by the FBI or anybody else. Doyle gave Wilson's address and phone number, and also here is Mr. Doyle's phone number. On December 28, 67, I sent the Blazewick material to you at the office by registered airmail. This material included an 11-page report of 4 interviews, a 27-page transcript of 1 interview, a list of names examined by Blazewick, and an index. I was wondering if you received everything in good order. Engineering Science Inc., my employer, is sending me to Rio de Janeiro for 4 or 5 months beginning February 7th. If there's anything I can do for you while there, let me know. I hope the Doyle film proves to be useful. I'm enclosing a self-addressed stamped envelope for your convenience. Sincerely, Stanley Primer, CC Paul Hawk, and Hal Verb. So one of the things that Mr. Primer sent over to Tom Bethel and Jim Garrison by proxy was an interview with Matt O. Wilson of Portland, Oregon by telephone concerning the Oswald literature scuffle in New Orleans on August 9th, 1963. Interviewer is Stanley Primer, and Wilson agreed to the interview being tape recorded. And this, folks, is the transcript. Primer, has anyone interviewed you about this matter? Wilson, well, if I remember correctly, there was some FBI people here one time and inquired about this same matter. So the FBI did talk to you about this. Wilson says, I don't recall. Gosh. I, I, I just can't remember how this went now. Now, folks, this has only been 5 years, not even 5 years, 4 years. Gee, it seems hard for me to remember. I'm pretty sure that there were some FBI people here, though. Now, man, gosh, my memory's poor on that. Either they were here or somebody else talked to me about it. Seems like they questioned us about it, but I'm not sure. Well, I had not heard. I just can't recall now how that went. Yes, well, besides from that, if you could recall for me as best you can. Oh, first, I should tell you who I am. I'm a volunteer investigator doing this on a part-time basis, and whatever you tell me will be passed on to the Mr. Garrison's office in New Orleans. If you could recall as best you can the incident when you were in New Orleans and saw Oswald passing out literature, and especially before the main ruckus started, what you observed then, if you could tell me about that, sir. Yeah, we were there on a convention deal. This Mr. Doyle, Pat Doyle, was along, and his wife, and he had a boy who was using a movie camera for the first time and taking every opportunity he could to get some pictures. I recall this all right when we were walking down the street. The Doyle family was with us, and my family, and we noticed this man coming down the street with a placard around his neck. Seems to me like there was two of them. There must have been another man there too, but I don't remember if he had any placards with him. But this man had something. Were they coming toward you? They were coming toward us, yes. They were. They were coming toward us. And there were two men together? Yeah, there were two men involved in this thing. But I don't remember if the other one had any placards on him. But this one that I can think of who we thought was the Oz, what's his name? You mean Oswald? Oswald, yes. I'm trying to place him. Oswald. He had this placard around his neck, and on it was inscribed something about Castro, long live Castro, or something like that. I just don't remember the wording or anything, but I remembered it was assumed that it was Cuban related, and I know that he referred to Castro on there. And golly, we had no more than met them when a group of other people jumped in there and started tearing up the literature. He had this literature in his hands, and he was handing it out to people as he went. Now, I didn't take one of those. I don't recall that I took one, but did any of your family take it? Or did Mr. Doyle's family, or did he take it? Ah, man, I don't remember that either, if any of them took them. I know that I could see the man passing bills as you see these street vendors do, you know. Some nut come along passing literature. I don't always take it now. I don't remember if Doyle did, but anyway, he was passing these out, and pretty soon several other people. It looked to me like they were not natives of this country. They looked to be more like a Latino or Mexican type. Jumped in right there, and they grabbed these poachers, and they began throwing them about. And then they shoved him to the ground, and they shoved him on the ground once. Oh, they did shove him to the ground. Yes. They shoved him down, and he was up, and he had this funny look on his face. I looked at him while this boy was taking pictures all the time. I can remember that face. Then when it came out in the newspapers afterwards, I could recall it. That was the same face. I mean, it appeared like he looked like he was that Oswald fellow. I can recall this. Yes, yes. And then pretty soon, it wasn't only a few minutes, and a police car pulled up there, and they put him in the police car, and they took him away. Did they only take Oswald away? I can't recall what happened to that other guy. I'm sorry. I just don't remember. But I think they took two of them. I'm just guessing at it because it's so hazy now, but I can remember they put one of them, this Oswald, the guy that had the literature. I know they put him in the car. If I can remember now what happened to that other guy that was walking with him. Was it your impression that the man walking with Oswald before the others came along, was it your impression that they were friends or that they were, yeah, well, I thought they were together, yes. I thought they were in a similar cause there, or whatever it was. Was the other man passing out literature too? I don't know. I don't think he was. I think he was just walking with him. I don't remember that he had. He could have, and they had a large placard too, and I don't know what happened to it. Somebody was carrying it. Either one of them was carrying it, large placard with him, and man, I think it was Oswald. The other man could have been carrying literature too. I just don't remember. Well, now this large placard, is that the one that Oswald was wearing, or is it a different one? No, they had another there too. Yeah, they had another placard. I seen it lying on the side there in the street when this ruckus was getting over. Why, I seen this other placard by the police car, and it was inscribed with some writing too that I did not decipher. I don't recall what it was. You didn't see what this other placard said? No, no. I mean, I did at the time, but I just don't remember now what it said. I know it was something to do with Cuba and a revolution or something. I think it was for Castro's cause. I thought it was. And now, did you see anyone else carrying a placard? Or no, I didn't. That's the only one that. These things happen, so it was kind of a hurry up deal too, and we didn't realize what it was all about, or I had no idea that this was a meaningful situation or a major item or like the killing of a president related thing at the time. I was more interested in this boy getting all these pictures. Yes, he was getting action. Right. Well, you didn't notice then if any of the Cubans were carrying a sign. No, no, I didn't. I didn't notice that the Cubans that jumped him were carrying anything. And how many would you say there were? Oh, I would judge there was at least 5 or 6, maybe more. But at least I seen 5 or 6 men in this group that challenged him, that actually had physical contact. Yes, yeah, they shoved him around there, but lively for a while. And he had this real sneery look on his face. He didn't care, he didn't seem to care what happened to him. He just had an odd expression. You know, when you look at a guy like that, you don't forget that look. This is what struck me. After I seen it in the newspapers, I could identify that face at least. Did you see anyone hit Oswald? No, I didn't. I didn't see anybody strike him, but I know he got pushed around. And there was a lot of jostling going on in there. And if there was quite a few people involved in there, so you couldn't tell what was going on all the time. I mean, I was trying to make room for this boy to get his damn pictures too, you know. Yes, yes. I was more interested in that than I was in the darn fight. Well, now, how close did you get to Oswald and his companion before the other people came along? Oh, I think we were almost abreast of them. We were almost abreast. In fact, they walked by us before these people actually started the melee. They were ahead of us, and I was trying to decipher the sign. And I told Mr. Doyle, so I can remember. I says, I wonder how far that guy's going to go in a Cuban refugee place like this with that sign. It kind of appeared to me that he was asking for trouble. Well, that could be, and that's what it turned out to be. Trouble. Did you happen to overhear any conversations between Oswald and his companion as they walked by you? No, nope, I didn't hear anything. Do you know if they were talking? I don't even recall if they were talking. I can't. I just can't recall that at all. I don't know. Did you get a very good look at the man who was with Oswald, particularly at his face? Not that I would recognize him, even if I probably looked at him, but I didn't. But Oswald had a different appearing face. He just had a damn odd expression that stayed in my mind. I just don't recall what the other man even looked like, to be honest with you. Well, see, one thing Mr. Garrison is interested in is the identity of this other individual. Oh, and well, I'm sorry I can't help you on that. I can't recall at all what he looked like. Well, let me ask you this. Do you think that Jim Doyle got pictures of this man? Well, I thought he did. I really thought he did. I'd have to, I think to my memory, I don't remember if I've seen these pictures. You see, the FBI came and taken them away before I had a chance to see them. Yeah, that's right. Now I remember what happened. They came over. They came over and got those pictures from Doyle. And I don't think I ever seen them. And after they came back, oh, it's been a long time after they came back before I even inquired once if he had them back. And he said that he did. But he felt that they had been cut up, edited. He thought something had been taken out of them. But I haven't seen the pictures. I never did see them even. He mentioned to me that he thought there were some scenes missing from the film. Oh, well, then you know about that. That's the only thing I know about. That I remember him saying that there. He thought something had been deleted or cut out. I think that he should have gotten a picture of both of those because he was busy taking these pictures. He was getting good pictures. He kind of stood at the side and he was getting a good shot at it. One time he said he got the back of my head in there, but outside of that, he seemed to be getting some pretty good pictures. Well, now, if you saw the pictures that Jim Doyle took, could you recognize the man who was with Oswald if he appears in these pictures? I wonder if maybe I could. Perhaps I could. I have a pretty good memory of faces. I can't remember names, but I certainly can. I have a good memory of faces. I would hope that I could help you. Well, could you do this for me? Could you contact Mr. Doyle? See, he's planning to send these pictures to New Orleans, and could you contact him? And either this evening or maybe the next day, perhaps both of you or other members of your family can look at these pictures again because it is of some importance to try to identify this other individual to find out who was involved with Oswald in this incident. Yes, well, yes. I'll try to get a hold of Pat. Yeah, if you could do that, that'd be very helpful. I mean, possibly see in the melee, it might someone who wasn't there. Yeah, couldn't pick out who was actually with Oswald. Yes, I could. I could do that then and might be able to identify it. Mr. Doyle said that he didn't think this other individual appeared in the pictures, but he wasn't certain, and I asked him if he would look at them again. Yes, but Doyle remembers there was another man there. Yes, he what he says agrees with what you say. I see. Well, I could find out if he's got those pictures and if he would let me see them. Now, you say the police arrived rather shortly after the incident? Yes. It was only a few minutes and the police were there. Like, boom. Do you think why they arrived usually fast or unusually fast, or did it seem out of the ordinary or just normal? No? I think that at least with modern radio cars, they could have been somewhere in the area and put them in a dispatch there in that time, maybe. If I remember right, somebody, somebody there started to holler for the police, and there was a store right there. I think it was a clothing store right in there, right opposite where this thing was taking place. They made a call from there for the police. Somebody was calling for the police. And I don't know who they were. They were either bystanders or some of these people. I know they called the police, and it was only a very short time when the police car, squad car, showed up there. They hustled him in. They hustled him into the squad car. I think it was Oswald. I can't remember the other man though. What happened to him? I just don't remember what where he disappeared. But I assume that he was in the car. You think the other man was in the car? Yeah, I just kind of think that he went into that same car if they put him in there, but I couldn't swear on it because I can't remember. I didn't pay much attention to it or didn't give a darn. Now, if you saw a group of photographs of different individuals, do you think you would recognize this other individual if his picture was in this group of photographs? I just wonder. I wouldn't know if I could. I'd like to take a try at it. Like I said, I have a pretty fair memory for faces. Well, yeah, but I don't know for sure. Mr. Garrison's investigator, who has been working on this particular angle, is named Tom Bethel. And now, if he would send you copies of the pictures, would you look at them? Yeah. Yeah, I'll take a look at them and see if I can. Yeah. Fine. I'll pass that information to him. Yes, yes. I'll try to take a look at it. Good. Now, is there anything else you could tell me about what happened? I, I think you've got about the whole story right there. I can't recall anything that would be of any profit to you. I'm not sure anything else happened there. It boils down to that. I see. Did you see Oswald passing out literature before the Cubans came along? Yes, yeah. He was passing out some literature out. Yep, that's right. At least as I can remember. Before you met him, then he was passing. I could see him coming down the street. Now we were walking not too far from the intersection, but far enough so we could see this man coming toward us with passing literature, and somebody was walking with him. I'm telling you. And several people, I'm sure, took some of these, but I don't think we took any of these. I just don't remember. And I don't usually take literature handed out on the street. But I did read that sign on his chest. What I could understand of it, there was a crudely made sign, hard to read, but I did read that he was favoring the Castro regime. And I made the remark to Mr. Doyle. I said, I wonder how far that guy's going to get in this town with that on his chest. I know that Miami was harbored quite a lot of refugees from Cuba, Cuban, and I felt that this wasn't the place to be flaunting it. And it wasn't no more than hardly got by us when these people jumped him. And I said to Pat, I said, well, here's trouble. What the heck was going on? This boy started taking pictures and we got busy trying to get him the pictures. Well, did you notice if anyone else was taking pictures of the incident? I didn't. I didn't notice anybody with a camera in there. I don't know of anybody else with a camera in there. No, I didn't see anybody else. When the Cubans came up, they were in small groups, or did all of them come together? It seemed like they all converged pretty much together. And where they came from even surprised me. It was almost like they materialized right in front of our eyes. I didn't even notice where they came from, but they must have been standing right there by the edge toward the buildings from the sidewalk. Just those building fronts, because I was just mystified where they came from. But there apparently was at least 5 or 6 more of them in that group. And they were highly agitated immediately. There was a little noise and talking, and some of the talking was in a foreign tongue, but I didn't understand it. I say I think most of them were speaking in a foreign tongue because I didn't understand or get any of it, what they were trying to tell him. No, I didn't get any of the conversation. I don't think any of us did because we were just dumbfounded. What was going on? I couldn't understand anything. Well, all right. Thank you very much for your help, Mr. Wilson. If you think of anything else of importance, if you would contact Mr. Doyle, because he's planning to contact Mr. Bethel. Okay. And if you could, both you and your family, too, perhaps. I understand you have a son that was there too. Yes. You might talk with them and see if they can remember anything else about it. I will. Particularly if they think they would recognize the individual with Oswald. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And likewise with Jim Doyle, Mr. Doyle's son. Fine, sir. Okay. Very good. Thank you. And thank you very much. Good night. And good night. Did you do, sir? So there you have it, folks. Eyewitness. Allegations of more than one person being with Oswald in a street fight, and more than just Carlos Bernier on the Cuban side of things being in the street fight. But in the end, we are left with an arrested Oswald, a not arrested Cuban contingent, and films from different angles, both alleged to be edited by the FBI before they were returned to them. So was, in fact, someone with Oswald that day? And was that someone possibly edited out of the footage of said movies? Well. Wouldn't it be something if there was? Anyway, that's it for episode number 245 of the Lone Gunman Podcast. Follow along on X, on TikTok, on Instagram at the Lone Gunman 7. On YouTube, search for the Lone Gunman channel, the Lone Gunman Podcast channel. Make sure to like and subscribe and share. And feel free to comment. Be a troll. Come join the fun. This has been another pleasure. This one's in the bag. Beamed up this satellite down directly to your ears, people. This is your boy, Triple B, Big Bad Bob Carter, along with you. Peace.
Situation Room, Irene. From the 18 bulletin, Kennedy apparently shot in the head. He fell face down in back seat of his car. Blood was on his head. Mrs. Kennedy cried, "Oh no!" And
Don't believe all what they tell you. The FBI or the CIA. The media and the lies that they tell you. The big event that killed JFK. Yeah, they blew him away. Away. Away.